All right, and we're live. Hello, everybody, to the second builder session, actually, that we have been organizing within the Sigma Sprint, which is in general the Sigma program. And today we're joined by Tristan from Backpack and Madlads. Hello, Tristan. How are you?
Hi. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, for sure. It's an honor. Fantastic to have you. You're in New York, right? If I'm not mistaken, but
No,
usually you're in Japan.
I'm in Chile in South America right now. My whole family's from down here, but yeah, I'm living in Japan at the moment.
Amazing, amazing. How has I know we've got a bunch of stuff to talk, but how has Japan happened for you? How did that come together?
Yeah, it was essentially this realization that the Asia market is where a lot of the energy and power is within crypto. Once the backpack exchange started, the company needed to be located somewhere outside of the United States, and Asia was the first priority. And then it sort of comes down to Hong Kong, Singapore, or Tokyo. And we ended up going with Tokyo because we're working on several licensing things there, and we had a team on the ground already. And we also sort of figured that it's a sexier city to have people move to if they're based in other places of the world, which so far has been a pretty good theory.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but I actually used to live in China for a very long time, right? And it was always I ended up going to Japan later, not even during my time there, but I had so many friends from Japan and everything. And once I visited, man, oh my God, you have it very nice over there for sure. It's from the food to the culture to everything. It's amazing.
Yeah,
So the full
it's
team is
truly a
based there?
wonderful country. It's been an amazing experience to be able to spend time there and get to know a little bit about the culture. I mean, really, if you want to learn a lot, you have to probably spend a couple decades there, but just getting to know a little bit, meet people, and really see how different of a culture it is than what we're used to in the United States has been quite a blessing.
Yeah. Do you speak any Japanese?
Sukoshi desu. Very, very little.
Oh,
Very
there we
little.
go. There we go. Okay. Every year, right? You learn a little bit to move forward. That is awesome. Anyways, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk backpack, Mad Lads, and everything that you guys are building, which is extraordinary, to be honest, right? Um, this is my transition into Wormhole, by the way, just so that you know, has been this year, right? And this has also been a transition into the Solana ecosystem, since we're doing so much within the Solana ecosystem, and it's just incredible to see like the foothold that Mad Lads has, and just in general backpack, how important of a product that is, or a suite of products. So maybe let's rewind a little bit and tell me how the whole thing actually came together, right? How did you meet Armani? How did it come together?
Yeah, absolutely. So Armani and I had met in early 2021 because we were both doing work within the Solana ecosystem back then, and there really weren't that many people that were working actively on the Solana ecosystem. So when you spot someone else that's doing good stuff, you end up, wanting to have a relationship with them and work with them. So we had done some work, not on the exact same things, but pretty close in parallel. And so when he started the company in the beginning of 2022, he essentially was probably looking for a co-founder, and he thought of me, and he reached out. He said, "Hey, Tristan, look, I'm co-founding this company. Would you want to join me on this adventure?" And I said, "Yeah, let's do it." And that was the beginning in early 2022. And at the time, we went through a variation of different ideas on what the product could be, but we were pretty dead set on it being a wallet because we basically didn't want to have an application where we were going to be at the mercy of others for distribution. We wanted to have something that begets distribution itself. And in that matter, a wallet is sort of a core piece of everything that happens on chain in crypto. And so we knew that that was a piece of infrastructure that we wanted to be providing. But then the question was like, well, what does this wallet do that makes it compelling for others to switch to versus the existing wallet set that is already out in the market? And there's a few different iterations there. At the very beginning, there was this idea of a safe wallet, secure wallet, smart wallet, which is sort of because we saw that all of these Bored Ape holders were getting hacked at that time and getting their wallets drained. And we started thinking about, well, what would it look like if you had a non-custodial wallet, but that if it had a decentralized 2FA, or it had withdrawal limits, or you could create these sets of hot, quote unquote, cold wallets within your regular non-custodial wallet infrastructure. So that was the original idea. Pretty quickly ran into issues with the Solana transaction sizing, where if we wanted to add all these proxy instructions to every transaction, basically everyone would have to really optimize their transactions, and people, developers don't want to optimize their stuff unless they really need to. And so that idea kind of went on the wayside. And then Armani was talking a lot about WeChat and this idea of having one application that then has a lot of different applications within it, kind of creating a hub for the different activities that users want to do. And we started thinking about, well, why hasn't this been created for crypto yet? There's been some of these dashboards that you've seen that show all the different dApps, but you kind of enter into a unique experience with each one. There isn't an interconnectedness, and there isn't sort of a cohesiveness between all the different experiences. And through that conversation, Armani had this realization that essentially you could have a decentralized application in crypto, because at the end of the day, like where the centralization comes from a lot of times, unless obviously you're using secondary services for your app and whatnot, is from the hosting. Like, where is this application hosted? Is it in an S3 bucket? Is it, in Azure? Where is it? And the realization was like, well, if you can tokenize an image, in the metadata of an NFT, you have the title, the traits, all these different pieces, and one of them is a line item that points to where the image is hosted, and it basically denotes ownership over that image. That can again be in IPFS, S3, Arweave, wherever it's stored. That line basically says, look, this token owns this image. And we realize, well, why can't that point to a bundle of code? Why does it have to point to just a JPEG, for example? Why can't it point to a JPEG and a bundle of code, like Madlads, for example? And then really, once you have that bundle of code, which can be a program, which can be whatever you want, you just need an execution environment for that. And we realized that the wallet was a pretty functional execution environment. You could sandbox it, you could make it safe so that anything that ran within that wallet environment couldn't get out of the wallet environment, and wouldn't be able to do anything malicious to the user's computer. And we sort of came out with this idea of XNFTs. And that was our go-to-market. But the really fun part, I think that might be interesting to the listeners, is that although that was the go-to-market, for a very long time, we didn't talk about it publicly. So we put out this term XNFT into the world. A lot of people on Twitter changed their usernames to, XNFT Armani, XNFT Tristan, XNFT Anatoly, and everyone wanted to know what it was. There was this huge buzz in the air. It was right around the time where there were some hot NFT projects, so people thought it might be an NFT project. And in those early days, when I first created the Twitter, the engagement was through the roof. We were just posting memes, but every meme would get voracious engagement. It was truly ridiculous. And what we realized was like, well, there's all this energy. There's all of this energy focused on us right now. And it's really generated from a curiosity standpoint. Like, people want to know what this XNFT thing is, but we've thought, how do we channel this? How do we make this last? How do we make it so that when we tell everyone what XNFTs are, this energy doesn't just dissipate into the ether and they go and look for whatever the next hot thing is? And so what we realize is, like, we can do a special type of community building that hasn't really been done before, at least in the crypto space, which is we can really curate a private community and pull good pieces out of all this energy that was inbound towards us. And so what I did was I created a private Discord, and I started inviting the people who were posting the best content, the best memes, that were super active and engaged. And I used a moniker, which essentially was this GIF, that if I replied to you with that GIF on Twitter, it meant you were going to get a Discord invite in your DMs. And so what that allowed me to do is it just basically trained all of this energy, this amorphous massive energy was able to be trained, because they were all just trying to get clues on how they could be a part of this. And they saw what was allowing other people to get the invites. And so a lot of them started modeling their behavior after that. They started creating memes, they started creating better content, they started being way more active and engaged. And what that allowed us to do is, over time, and this was probably like a year-long process, because I think from when we opened the Discord, which was early 2022, until we did the Madlads mint, there was like over a year. There was like a year in between there. And when we were forming the community at the beginning, we weren't even thinking of doing the Madlads mint. It was just this selection of high quality people who we knew we wanted to be on this journey with us. And the reason I'm kind of going like this, I mean, you had this product question, and I'm kind of like turning all the way over into the
That's
community
great.
side,
That's great. Yeah.
is because essentially it's been a really core part of everything that we've done. And I think it's been a very unique thing. There's been a lot of people that have built wallets. There have been a lot of exchanges in the market, but there have been very few projects that have been able to garner this amount of energy from amazing people that are really behind everything that we're doing. And I think a lot of it was that what we did is that we hand selected the initial 400, 500, 600 people that were in that Discord, and we spent a lot of time with them, and we became friends with them, and we really kind of like had a personal connection with these people. And over time, they became the cultural backbone of everything that we did going forward. And so when we opened the Discord publicly, when the Mad Lads Mint was coming down the pipeline, all these things, and thousands of people started flooding into our communities, they kept the cultural standard. They kept the motto alive so that we could focus on all the product stuff and all the other things, and didn't have to, again, retrain all of these new people on what the mission and motto was. So that's this community component that then turned into the Mad Lads community, because all those early members received whitelist for the Mad Lads Mint. So that we're still hanging with the same people today, and it's truly amazing. And like, have so much love for these people because they've been on this journey for the last couple years now. But essentially, that whole transition is what led into the Mad Lads Mint, which was this realization of, okay, we have all this energy, all these amazing people. How do we then channel that into a representation that shows that they're a part of our community specifically to the world? And I think PFP projects are a really good way of doing that, because it lets you on social media put a representation towards the world of like what community you're a part of. And then there were two other reasons. One was that because of this concept of XNFTs, which are decentralized applications essentially, or an NFT that also has an application tied to it, we needed a showcase of that for the world. And the Mad Lads were the perfect way to showcase this product innovation, because they Mad Lads are XNFTs as well. And then the third reason was that we wanted to show what it looked like if you were able to tie all of your different product decisions together. And what I mean by that is that instead of doing the typical NFT route, which was you make a website, people connect their wallet, everything happens on this website interface, we made all of the experiences happen within the wallet. So, when people wanted to get like the very early beta access users of the wallet, they all automatically got a whitelist that they then were able to claim within the wallet. Everyone else that got a whitelist was able to claim it within the wallet. There were these experiences you had to go through all within the wallet interface. When the mint happened, it happened within the wallet. And then there was a game that had to be played to reveal your lads because they were minted as rugs. So, but all these things were happening in a wallet, which no one had seen before. Everything had always been very web-based. And so seeing it in the extension was very special and new for people. And I think it was another driver of where a lot of that energy and attention and downloads, especially during that period, we got for the wallet product. And then in 2024 is when Armani decided to build Backpack Exchange, and he brought in the best people for the job essentially, and worked with them to get all of that off the ground, which went live in November of last year. So almost a year now, which is incredible how quickly it was built and everything was put together. And then the next milestone there is that derivatives, so spot margin perps, is around the corner.
This is hands down probably one of the master classes in community building. So if anybody has, because we ran sessions last week on marketing, on community building, on all of these things, and honestly, this is pretty much a master class that you just gave within 10 minutes. How to obviously it's very hard to replicate, right? This is not, you need momentum, you need the right product, you need the right people, right? You need the right, sometimes it really just comes down to some of the vibes, the charisma that you have, right? If you talk to, I don't know how many people in the chat have met you in the person, but you're a genuinely very pleasant person to talk to, right? So you kind of hit a lot of these check marks. So here's my follow-up question. At what point did you start fundraising? Right? Because just trying to shift gears a little bit here, there's this amazing story of building a community, building the product as well, right? There's actually, if you think about it, it's kind of a combination of three products, right? The wallet, the Mad Lads as the community, and then the exchange. At what point did you start fundraising? Was it even necessary to fundraise for you?
So at the very beginning, when the company launched, there was a strategic capital allocation from two investors. So it wasn't a very traditional fundraising pathway,
Mhm.
but it gave the capital for the company to get off the ground. And then for the fundraise that happened earlier this year, which was 17 million raised at 120 mil valuation, it was like essentially like a Series A, I guess,
Congratulations.
seed phrase. I was fortunate in that I didn't have to do too much there because Armani and Can handled the vast majority of that work. So I'm not the best person to ask on like what the specific techniques are on the fundraising side. I do think that we are seeing so there's in my mind at least. I'm not saying this is based off backpack experience or anything because again, Armani and Can handled the fundraise, but essentially there's two pathways. One is you have a lot of energy and hype and anticipation and excitement, and you raise off that. You raise off the promise of what is to come because maybe your product isn't live yet. It's going to take time, all these things. But if you have enough like hype, so I'll give an example of this is, Monad hasn't been out in the wild yet, but they were able to raise these gigantic valuations able to these potential future outcomes that get people really excited and is a pathway to raising. And it's all based on future expectation. And then once you have products in the wild and you have users on those products and you've been alive for a bit, let's say, you're over a year old or 2 years, whatever it is, numbers start mattering a lot more. So VCs will actually start trying to get an understanding. Okay, how much volume are you doing? How much revenue are you generating? How many weekly active users? How many monthly active users? And it becomes a lot more analytical because the first version of this world you can't really analyze. You're just going off of a bet on the team and their capability to solve the problems that they're saying they're going to solve. But on the other hand, it just comes down to the numbers that you're generating and the outcomes that you've had and the things that you've been able to achieve that are sort of provable, so to say, because you're already out in the world, and it's harder to do that version where you're raising off expectations. So I think those are the two pathways for founders, depending on the state that their company is in at the moment that they're raising, or which phase of raises they're at.
First of all, congratulations on the successful raise. It's fantastic to hear. I hope you're going to do lots of cool things with that with that money in general. Um, it's incredible to hear a story of such success, right? Because you essentially everybody kind of starts out from zero, right? There's pretty much nothing, and then you slowly start building, and you're building, and you start engaging, and so on. And you've done a fantastic job at doing that. So how do you look into the future, right? What is to come for Backpack, the wallet, the exchange, Madlads, for Tristan, for Armani, over the next, I don't know, 6, 12, 18, 24 months, right? Kind of short to midterm.
Yeah. And not to put words in others' mouths, this is my view, but I think that essentially the thing that will happen now is that the foundational pieces are all getting to the point where they're quite established. And what I mean by that are the product foundations. So the wallet now is not only a Solana wallet, it supports a vast variety of wallets, or excuse me, of chains that people are interested in using. It has Wormhole connecting all of these chains together so people can easily bridge their tokens from one place to another within the wallet. They can swap their tokens from one chain to another within the wallet. So it's all becoming very interconnected. And we're getting to the point where the support for EVM chains is quite good and it's reasonable as a wallet to use, not only for your Solana activity, but for your EVM activity. And there will be more chains added. We've been adding the SVMs. So we have Eclipse and we have Sonic in the wallet, which allow people to try these new Solana runtime networks that are being put out into the world. And so on that side, it's like right now it's just polishing, adding the networks that make sense and making that experience seamless as people go through all these different networks they want to use, do all the different activities they want to do on the on-chain world. And then it's just focus on customer acquisition and growth, right? More users. There's already a lot of users in the wallet. It's grown quite healthily, but just to continue pushing in that direction, getting more people to use the product essentially. And then same thing on the exchange side. So the spot market's been live for about a year now, and most of international crypto trading is actually derivatives volume rather than spot volume. And most international crypto traders prefer derivatives. So like for them, a full feature set is you can have spot, but you need to have perps, you need to have borrow lending, you need to have these other functionalities for it to feel like their home base exchange. And so up until now, Backpack Exchange has just not been feature complete, but it's getting really close to having those foundational building blocks that make it completely usable for all the activities that people want on the exchange side. And then once that goes live, it's just going to be all about getting, good market makers to provide liquidity, good traders to come in and pick off that liquidity, have the right markets, have the right products, and just continue building on top of that and having customer acquisition. Can and his team are the best in the world at crypto licensing, so they're getting licenses in different jurisdictions to be able to legally and in a compliant manner serve those jurisdictions, to get banking relationships in those jurisdictions. So all these pieces are finally coming together. They just take a long time to put sort of out into the world. And once that's done, it's just going to be about customer acquisition as well. Users, users, users.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You're becoming a mature project, right? So it kind of needs to go into the compliance direction as well, especially with the exchange side.
Oh, that's been one of the beauties of the exchange, is that it's been completely compliant from the very beginning. It's taken a very different approach than a lot of these international exchanges that have kind of come out swinging, with some without even having KYC requirements, just kind of trying to get as much market share as possible. The Backpack approach has been very different. We've had VARA, which is a principal regulator of the exchange since day zero. Every user on the exchange has been KYC'd. There are reports to regulators. So everything is done very much by the book, which then is very important for future conversations with regulators and expansions and whatnot.
That's awesome. How about the Madlads side? How's that looking?
So the Madlads, one thing that I am blown away by is how much it's taken on a life of its own. And what I mean by that is that rather than a bunch of people who are like, oh, nothing happens unless the team is doing something, or this is all about the team, the Madlads holders seem to have really realized that their outcomes are much more decided by their own activity than by what the team is doing. And what I mean by that, like, here's a perfect example. So, Wormhole gave the Madlads a lot of W tokens, locked investing over a year. And the reason the Madlads earned that wasn't because, the Backpack team went and said, Wormhole, you need to give the Madlads tokens. The reasons the Madlads got those tokens is because they are just the most active community on X and in Web3 right now, I would say. And so for any project that wants exposure to a really strong community, especially the Solana side, it's a no-brainer to do something with Madlads, because they will show up and they will support you and they will put energy into whatever it is that you're doing or whatever it is that you're thinking about and whatever you want to build. And they'll try your product and they'll give you feedback and they'll bull post, or they'll keep you straight if you're doing something bad, and they'll give you good feedback or criticism. And so that machine that they've created continues on and on and on. And I think that they've realized that, and so they're being more active, more engaged. They're organizing into different subgroups within the community of people who are either in the same region or have the same sort of tendencies or hobbies or things they care about. And so I think at this point, like, Madlads have really taken on this culture of their own, and it's more about sort of giving them support here and there where they need it, and giving them the things that continue to potentiate that. Like there'll be some holder swag soon because it's been too long on that front. But really, it's just truly impressive to see how self-sufficient and active they are. And as a message to the Madlads community, I mean, just like, if you guys need anything specific, if there's anything you're excited about, they can definitely reach out to us as well. But that's how I view it at the moment.
That's pretty much the most difficult part of community building, right? Coming to a point of self-sustainability or self-sufficiency. Obviously, you're not disappearing, right? Obviously, you're still here and available to help and everything, and you've got maybe some of your plans. But that seems like the most difficult part of the community building journey, coming to a state where there's enough people, enough enthusiastic people to truly care and to truly take that, not just the brand, but also the ethos of it, the vibe of it, but beyond yourself, right? And I think that goes back to what you were doing in the early days. I bet a ton of these people that are so enthusiastic are actually the people that you spoke to probably one-on-one back, 2, 3, 4 years ago. You probably know a good deal of them, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the most active community members to this day are people who joined the Discord over the last 2 years. People who we've been around for a really long time and had the pleasure of spending a lot of time with and just getting to know them and telling them about ourselves. And that's why one of the reasons this worked is because we basically did things that don't scale. And what I mean by that is that we realized how important it is to actually spend time in a genuine manner with people. I think there's like one of the biggest mistakes crypto companies make is they think retail crypto users are just like plebs. They're like, oh yeah, those guys, they're not working in the industry. What do they know? They, whatever. Like, we don't need to engage with them. And that's like probably the worst mentality you can have in this space, because anyone that worked in the industry started as a retail crypto user. The people who are genuinely excited about these things and they want to find communities that they can participate in around crypto, around blockchains. And one thing I think people underestimate too is how many of these people don't have that in their day-to-day life. So their friends don't do crypto, their friends don't do blockchain. They love it, but they don't really have an outlet for it. That was my personal experience before working in crypto as well. And so finding a community like Madlads or many other, because there's a lot of really good communities in crypto where the team is in there and actually willing to talk to you and hear your ideas and show you that, just because you're not working in the industry, you're still a valid part of the industry, um, is really important, but you can't fake it. That's the really interesting thing. Like, the only way to do that properly is you actually have to care about other people genuinely and be fine just hanging out with people and getting to know them. And I think all the time that Armani and I invested into that really, really, really paid off over time, because people realize like, hey, I actually have a spot that is my crypto home now. So even if they're crypto retail, maybe they have jobs in the real world, jobs outside of crypto, they feel like they have a home within this industry that they can come to. And that's the Mad Lads community. That's the backpack community. That's a place where, they feel like they can talk to people as their peers, even if they can't talk to them in the real world.
It seems like there's no trick to this, right? There's no playbook to this. I mean, there's obviously skill and there's art to it, but at the end of the day, like you said, if you start engaging with people on a level that doesn't scale, because you can't talk to 1,000 people, right? But you can talk to 10 or to 15 or to 20, right? And that's what it takes in the beginning to get that going. So would you say, like, how would you condense this for somebody who's just starting out, right? What would be your advice for somebody that's maybe thinking about building something, or maybe has built something, doesn't really know how to maybe talk about it and communicate it? We had a really interesting question that I think is kind of the epitome of a lot of people that start out early. How do I talk about myself without being like pushy or shilly? How do I get that across, right? How do I even think about starting to build a community like you guys did before? Almost nothing was there when you started doing these things. What would be your advice to somebody like that? You're on mute, just so that you.
One thing that we had that was a huge blessing is that we had a lot of people sort of support our mystery launch at the beginning. So, it's not everyone's going to be able to have totally change their Twitter handle to support your new concept or your new thing. So that was a hack that we had, and it was definitely something that put us in a place that can be hard to replicate, because a lot of what we achieved came from like this initial energy that was generated and then being able to channel that in a productive manner versus just letting it dissipate over time. And so one of the core things, if you want to have this like quote unquote like hyper scaling or quick growth of some kind, is you need to generate excitement. You need to generate something that makes people interested to know what you're doing or to come and engage with you or interact and want to be a part of that. So that's probably the hardest part at the beginning, is doing something that gets people excited and finding a way so that people pay attention to what you're doing, because crypto is so saturated that it's really hard to get um, sort of like mind share on the timeline, because there's just so much going on. So many people already have so many followers. But I would say if you can't do that, like if you're doing something and you feel like you'll be unable to generate initial energy or excitement on the timeline, you can start by just really engaging with people at the ground level. So if there are communities that you're in already in crypto, you can tell them what you're building, why you're excited about it, why you care about it. You can start finding people who are interested in what you're doing, start putting them together in a Telegram chat or a Discord chat, or figuring out how to put them in one place so that they can continue being the supportive network of people you can bounce ideas off of, or just kind of like have as your initial community for your project. But I think that's a much slower approach. So just like a word of caution there, that it won't be the same unless you're able to generate some spark of attention or energy at the beginning and then channel that. And I think one thing too is that for projects who aren't launching with a live project at the very beginning, either they have like a beta they only want to do for a small segment of people, or they don't even have a product for another 6 months or whatever period of time it is, it can be really good to create sort of that feeling of privacy, secrecy, sort of like I'm in, that people can get if they're in a private Discord or a private Telegram or something like that. So I would definitely encourage folks to try and really build that core community while making those people feel special and that they are in a place where others aren't before opening it up to the public, because it'll create a much more tight-knit community at the beginning.
A little bit of exclusivity as well, right? To kind of get people in. I mean, that's just incredible advice, honestly. And it plays back to what you said earlier into how you guys have launched and how everything went. But maybe kind of a follow-up question to all of this, maybe a little bit tangential, but we spoke about your future outlook and what you're looking forward in terms of the product and everything, and obviously adoption. How about Solana in general, or the blockchain space in general, right? Because there's so much going on. This cycle, we've seen a lot of meme coins. There's a lot of kind of discourse around that. We've definitely seen a lot of very cool product launches. I've just yesterday seen Donald Trump post that he's doing almost like an ICO style launch, right? There's a lot happening. What's your take on the next year or 2 years or something like that for the blockchain space?
Yeah, it's a really hard question. So I think right now the way I see it is, in the current moment in time, Solana is the most promising chain as far as fulfilling this capability of being the place where truly interesting things at scale happen. Be that for the existing crypto community or things that bring in the next generation of crypto users. In my mind, Solana is that place right now. But the thing is I think people sometimes forget how early this all is. And what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. So, Sui, who Armani, who is my kind of like technical advisor, when he knows the tech about things better than anyone else I know, and he thinks their tech is really exciting, that they have something good going. So if they build an app that gets 50 million users, it could boost them up into the sort of lead of the blockchain scaling wars or whatnot. So all of this is still very variable, and there's the possibility for huge volatility depending on, it's like a breakout application on one of these networks that really surpasses the users of all the others. So that's one thing I just kind of want to put a word of caution, that just because the current state of crypto is as it is, it doesn't mean that will be the continuation of it. And I think we've seen that over time as the industry just keeps evolving and changing. So yeah, so I still do strongly feel that Solana is the most interesting of the current blockchains, but I also see a lot of smart teams trying to work on different solutions, perhaps for different use cases for the same use case. So I'm a little hesitant to kind of like lay down the hammer and say that Solana won and that's it, GG, because I think that the playing field is still very much open. I think like from a technological perspective, everything I said is true. From a community perspective, it's quite a bit different. And what I mean by that is that one thing that's happened is that all three, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana, have been able to generate tremendous wealth effects for people. And what I mean by that is that, the Ethereum ICO was open. Well, obviously Bitcoin, if you were early, you were early, and now it's gone up infinity. But in the Ethereum ICO, you could participate as a regular member. You could buy this for cents, and now it's thousands of dollars. So a lot of people really, their lives were completely changed. Um, their lives were completely changed from, oh my God, everyone's calling me. Their lives were completely changed because of these two things. And then Solana had a similar thing where no one cared about it for a really long time. It was like under $1. It was completely forgotten. And the savvy user who wanted to kind of like accumulate was able to, and people who got in, early-ish did really well. And we're tribal beings at the end of the day. And I think for most people, there is this innate loyalty that we have towards things that have done well for us or have taken care of us in some fashion. And so I think a lot of the tribalism we see in crypto today is just where people made their money. It's which network gave them the financial opportunities that changed their lives, which brings their loyalty to that network. And, we see it for sure on the Ethereum side. The Bitcoin side, I think a lot of the OGs have kind of like disconnected and they're not that present on the social media discourse. So we don't see as much, but we definitely see it on the Ethereum side. I think we see it on the Solana side. And what's going to be hard in my mind for some of these newer networks is that they weren't able to do the ICO route because regulations have changed a lot. And so they sort of need tremendous amounts of capital to get these things off the ground, to build these teams that are required for these things to work. But what that means is that they have already raised at really high valuations, like multi-billion-dollar valuations. And when they come to the market, they're not going to be able to tell their investors. I mean, hey, maybe someone will pull it off, but it's going to be a really hard conversation to the investor to be like, okay, we sold you tokens at a $2 billion valuation, but we're actually going to launch our token at a 300 mil market cap so that, retail has the chance of having wealth effects with our token. Like that's going to be really unlikely. And so these networks are going to hit the market quite expensive. And unless it's in an environment of a lot of positive volatility or upside, then people won't be able to make as much money unless one of these like really wins and takes off and just like sucks in all the crypto mindshare and capital. But what that will cause is like these people may love these networks, they may be excited for them, but that same loyalty may not be there. And so I'm really curious actually to see what happens over the next year or two with some of these networks who seem really promising, have amazing teams, but will have to hit the market a much higher valuation. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on. I think Bitcoin is king. Like I feel that way. Like I think this narrative of digital store of value or digital gold is actually a very present thing in our day and time. And what I mean by present is that it's something that is on more and more people's mind. Either their currencies, their fiat currencies are facing incredible inflation. They're realizing their quote unquote democratic governments are not that democratic after all and can cut off their access to financial systems whenever they want. They're, realizing that they, as a nation state or a nation, don't want to be completely under the yoke of the euro dollar or like the dollar markets. So you have places like Bhutan who are now putting like a quarter of their GDP into Bitcoin and are mining tremendous amounts of it, and El Salvador. And so I do think that it's becoming harder and harder to know where to allocate capital in the world. And I think Bitcoin is going to be a place where a lot of that capital will move. And we're starting to see it with things like the ETF, where it's making it easier for traditional finance to move money into it, and it's becoming an acceptable thing for financial planners to sell to their clients, or for large institutions to kind of get involved and hold some themselves, and so on and so forth. So I think that will just continue to grow. I'm definitely a Bitcoin bull. 5, 10-year, 20-year timeline, I think it's going to be really ridiculous, especially if inflation continues to rage and cost of living go up everywhere. So I think that's kind of like my sense on Bitcoin, is that it's still very, very positive outcomes down the road for it. Ethereum, I think they have a lot of very smart people, sort of like working on it or adjacent to it. I think there are a lot of people who I respect, but I think in itself, it's not in a good place at all right now. And I think a lot of what keeps it chugging along is the loyalty of all these people who made truly tremendous amounts of money off of it and adjacent projects on the same network. And I think the L2s are not a positive approach to scaling. And I've had this view since 2020, which is just like basically when you work in the exchange business, you realize that like liquidity is king. People just want to trade where they have the most liquidity and the least price impact on every trade that they make. And if you have like this modular approach where you have all of these different networks with their own AMMs, with their own dexes or whatever trading mechanisms they're building, liquidity will just become fragmented across all of these different L2s. And it won't be that same experience as you get when you show up on Solana. And if you're swapping through Jupiter, it just pulls liquidity from every single place that it exists on the network, which to be fair, there should be more. Like it's kind of crazy that it's only Radium and Orca. Don't get me wrong. Like I think there should be a lot more sort of products like that in the world, but you don't get that experience with this fragmentation. And then also what ends up happening is you get basically warfare between folks who were aligned beforehand. So the L2s are competitive. Like anyone that thinks L2s aren't competitive, I think is wrong. It's a very, very, very competitive space. And it's very much like knives out. And it's a little sad because most of these people were all probably aligned when they were doing stuff in the Ethereum space. But now they realize like it's sort of like a winner or a few winner take all market, because I very much doubt there's going to be a world where there's like 100 successful L2s in the EVM world, especially if Monad actually succeeds in what they're aiming to do. So that's my sense on the Ethereum world, is that they're in a pretty difficult spot right now. I'm not that optimistic. I don't hold any Ethereum at all. I do hold ERC20s. There are like projects I find promising, but just at a network level, that's how I feel. I think one thing I hope for, I'm not saying this is the case, but I really hope for is that we start seeing more talent pour into the space. I think a lot of very smart people still view crypto as a scam. And obviously things like FTX don't help that, and these different, Luna, all these different things we've seen. But I think if we can somehow get over that hump and make people be excited about what is being built in this industry and the technologies that are there and the use cases that these permit, then we could have a really promising inflow of ideologically motivated builders, which is what we want. Because every bull market, you see all the financially motivated people kind of like stream into the industry, and then a lot of them fade out in the bear markets. But if you get ideologically, focused builders like Armani just fell in love with the technology, and he's worked on Ethereum, he's worked on Oasis, he's worked on Solana, he's probably done stuff for other chains with everything we're doing, and he just loves it, and he truly thinks it's special. And so if we can get more people, in that caliber to come in, I think it's very promising for our space in general. So that's something I'm hopeful for. I think we're moving in that direction. Yeah, that's a
How
kind of a
about on
brain
the
dump.
NFT side?
Yeah, so NFTs is very similar. I guess, yeah, I can touch on your meme coin question as well, which you tied into that, which is that at least, I haven't been in crypto for that long. I've been in crypto since beginning of 2017, which was that like 7 years now. And one thing you really notice is how cyclical liquidity is in crypto. And what I mean by that is that there tends to be a meta, and there's this huge hot ball of money that's kind of like following that meta around. But then when that narrative fades, the hot ball of money looks for the next thing to go into. Um, and it just happens over and over and over again. You get kind of like this rotation into all the different sectors in crypto. And obviously for the last year almost now, meme coins have been the meta. Which like in my mind make a lot of sense. It's the most brainless way to invest in crypto, if that makes sense. Like all you really need to do is like look, make sure it's not one wallet. And I'm gonna use a naive example as if the team maybe didn't split the tokens into 56 wallets so it doesn't look like it's all concentrated. But you just kind of need to go and see like, okay, there isn't one person who can dump this entire project on me if it goes up too much. the community is strong. Their Twitter gets a lot of engagement. There's some key people who get a lot of mind share on crypto Twitter, like Ansem talking about it, or Murad, or whatever. Okay, I'm gonna buy some because it hasn't gone up very much and it's early. Like that's a much easier sort of vibes based decision to put money into than if you have to go and like, okay, here's the DPIN sector. Here are all the projects in DPIN. Here are the different things that they're trying to do in the physical world. Okay, which of these makes sense and might actually have positive outcomes? What do the token distributions look like? How much do VCs have? When do VCs unlock? How much does the team have? When does the team unlock? Like, what listings have they got? Like, there's all these different components that if you want to actually choose winners, it takes a lot more intentionality and thought that I think create a barrier. And then also one thing that I think the whole sort of meme side of the market has done really well is create this sentiment of us and them. So like them is every coin that has had VC investors, that has gone like the more traditional route, that's all about the enrichment of insiders. And then us is community takeovers, launch a token, come together and have fun. And even though, not all the us, not all the thems are bad or malicious at all, that marketing or that narrative has been really good for the memes, which is like, kind of like stick it to the man by investing in memes. And I think that's also generated a lot of energy. So going to the NFT side of things is, I think, as I said, the capital in crypto is very cyclical, and I think money will move back to NFTs at some point. I don't know when. I don't know what will be the catalyst, what will start it off. Maybe we'll start seeing some crazy zombie punk sales or ape punk sales. Like some there's always some catalyst that gets people chattering, that makes the first person go and put some money, kind of gets the ball rolling. So I do think at some point liquidity will flow back into NFTs. I don't know when that will be or when that won't be. And then on the meme coin side, there's one more thing I want to say, which is that, look, at the end of the day, a lot of crypto is a meme. A lot of these coins are meme coins. I mean, to Bitcoin is a meme coin, and the meme is like, we're all gonna get this thing and we're never gonna sell it, and because we never sell it and we get this thing, it'll have more value over time. Um, but I think one thing that argument forgets is just like how much electricity is being turned into compute to secure the Bitcoin network. So there really is like a flow of real world into digital realm that does, in my mind at least, give value to the Bitcoin network that you don't see in most meme coins. So just like something to think about there.
That's a really good take, though. Given we've got just 10 minutes left, maybe we can open it up if people have any questions. We could have been doing this all along anyway. So, but yeah, if anybody in the audience has any questions, we're happy to take them. We've got a couple of more minutes. As we wait for the questions to roll in, maybe just to recap, right? We spoke a little bit about the background of Backpack, Madlads, how you initially started, what some of the how everything came together. We dove deep into some of the future updates, some of your thoughts coming into I don't know if it's the next cycle, if at least connected to this cycle. But yeah, maybe just to close it off before we really close it off, if there's no questions, I ask you about giving advice, right, on the community side and how to get that going. But maybe as a parting thought, it would be nice to hear your thoughts on just generally building a company, right, or building a project, or how to start out, right? What would your words of wisdom be to somebody who's mid-20s, mid-30s? They're thinking about starting off. Maybe they need to leave their job, go all in on something. There's a hackathon upcoming. They can make maybe 10, 20, 30K. Like, think about that setting and maybe give people some of your advice.
Yeah. So I think generally you miss all the shots that you don't take is one thing. But the only way I think to take a shot in the startup world, especially in the venture startup world, where I mean like you're trying to scale a growth business versus just doing a lifestyle business, is that you need to be like Armani. And I think that's the only way to make it work. And what I mean by that is that Armani shows up to the office 7 days a week without fail, never calls in sick, is in there, 14 hours a day, sometimes more, and just does what needs to get done every single day of his life. And I think that the only way to really be successful is by putting in that type of energy and intensity and focus, because if not, you're going to get lapped by somebody else who is. Like there's an analogy about this in the scientific world, which I think applies very well to the business startup world, which is essentially that if you're a scientist on a very specific problem and you want to solve the genome of something that may allow you to then understand how to cure cancer, and you're putting in 50 hours a week on that problem, there's another scientist somewhere that's putting in 70, 80, 90 hours a week on that same problem, and you will never ever pass or catch up with that person. I mean, you might have some miracle breakthrough and that puts you ahead, but like realistically, whoever's putting in more time and energy and intensity is going to be out front. So I don't think that starting a startup is something you can do if you want to come in and work regular hours and not have it consume you and be it your entire life. And I think that's the only way to really make it work.
Look at Elon, right? The guy runs 6 companies, and look at his last week. I mean, literally transforming humanity by the stuff that he puts out. And the guy's intense, right? If you think about it, the
Yeah, I
guy
mean, he
works
sacrificed
nonstop.
everything, right? Like he knew his vision, and he gave up every other sort of thing that humans try and strive for, which is like rest and family and relaxation and pleasure. And like he doesn't want any of those things. He just wants to keep driving and pushing on what he's doing. And I think like that is probably the mentality that you need to make most companies work.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The grit, right? The showing up and actually having output day in day out. We do have a question for you. What will you consider your biggest challenge building Backpack and your other products? Ooh, that's a good one. I
I
actually
think
forgot to ask you that.
I think the probably the hardest part was when FTX collapsed, because we had the vast majority of the backpack treasury on FTX. So, you know, we had raised about 20 million. We had spent a good deal just on salaries and everything. We had like 15 million on FTX, and then only a very little amount of money in a bank account outside of FTX. And so when FTX collapsed, we thought we were dead. Like Armani and I were Armani was flying back from Lisbon on a plane with shitty Wi-Fi. We were trying to see if we could get any off FTX. Withdrawals were closed. It was done. And for a moment there, it was like, oh, okay, like, do we wrap it up? What happens now? And I think that was probably the scariest moment, or the moment closest to death. And then from there, we decided to just keep pushing, and everything kind of was able to continue flourishing. And the Madlads mint was really successful, and everything worked out. But that was a very dark, scary moment.
That sounds incredibly scary. Incredibly scary. Um, I think this wraps it up. I think this is a really good parting thought. Maybe a bit scary one, right? But kind of to catch people on their feet, you need to keep doing, you need to keep building, you need to keep having output to be successful. And I think this is what you and Armani show up day in, day out, and show people that is what you're doing. So thank you very much, Tristan. This was a fantastic, fantastic session. You conquered by continuing pushing, right? Exactly. Awesome. Thank you very much, Tristan.
Well,
This was a wonderful session. We're going to be doing a bunch more of these. We've got a whole hackathon coming up. We're calling it a builder competition just to be a bit more fancy. But yeah, hope to see you around. Always a pleasure, Tristan. Thank you very much.
yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Bye, everyone. Take care.